We are live. You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to another YouTube Power Pack live session by ScoreLeap. For those of you who do not know, ScoreLeap is an edtech company that trains students on standardized tests like GMAT, GREs, and SATs. We also help you get into your dream colleges for your MBA and master's program. I'm Ashika, your host for the day. And today is going to be a very interesting session where we're going to talk about a journey from India to one of the world's biggest business schools in supply chain. The USC Marshall School of Business is known very widely for its supply chain and operations program and also for the connections in the industry. Today, to talk about this very special college, we have somebody very special from our own ScoreLeap community. Hi, Niharika.
Hey, Ashika.
Hello. Can you briefly give us an introduction about yourself for the audience?
Of course. Hi everybody. I'm Nihaarika. So, I'm from I'm from Bangalore, India, and I moved to the US for my master's in 2024. Um, I went to USC, as Ashika mentioned. I did my master's in supply chain. So, glad to be here and help out, anybody who needs any insights on how to get in here or what helped, what didn't, and my entire journey.
Very excited to have you today, and I hope our audience takes as much insight as possible from this session. As Niharika
Yeah,
very rightly
excited to
mentioned,
be here.
she did her master's from USC Marshall and is now working at Tesla right after her college. So we're very excited for you all to hear her journey and understand as much as possible and take what's relevant for you. So let me tell the audience that before we get into this chat, we are going to have you guys can drop in your questions in the chat box and we'll take it towards the end of the session when we have time. Okay. So Niharika, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So take us back to where it all began. What were you doing before your masters? Where were you? And why did you choose US as the first preference?
So I did my bachelor's in computer science previously before my master's in Bangalore. I did it in computer science. I kind of figured during that 4 years of my time, I wasn't super computer coded. I wanted to like diversify. It wasn't really something I wanted to continue doing much later on. That's kind of when I also had the opportunity to take up like a minors and in one of the management subjects. And that's when I came across supply chain. And I just took it out of interest to see, what's there for me and would I like it or not. And that's kind of where it all started from. And apart from that, I was also trying to figure out what else I would like to do. I was, to be very honest, I was kind of looking at, the job roles that I would see myself doing. And that's how it all started, trying to look into what I need to study or what I need to do to get into that kind of a job. That it all boiled down to supply chain in the end, and that's kind of why much later I got a full-time job at KPMG for about a year as a technology assurance audit analyst. But again, like I said, it wasn't completely something I wanted to do out of interest. I took that time to like study what I need to do or like which college I want to go to and all of that. And that's kind of where it all came from, like supply chain for me. I used to read, or I used to just get more knowledge on it, do courses on the side to understand if it's really something I want to do. And later on I realized that it is where I want to take my career path, like in that direction. So I decided that I would take up supply chain. And why US is because over here, there are a lot of colleges that do have that are really like top ranked for these courses and are very specialized. And I figured that getting into these colleges and like getting to study that and like the right way, getting these hands-on experiences, and US also being one of the biggest hubs for supply chain was the reason why I did want to come to the US. So yeah.
I mean, so like you said, the supply chain management program that you've taken is a very specialized program, right? Can you walk us through a little bit more about the curriculum, what it actually looks like, what are the courses, how did this translate into your job at Tesla? You know?
Of course. So, coming down to the curriculum is, I'm gonna be very honest, it is very tough. It is not easy because it is so specialized, and having this drastic change from computer science to supply chain, um, it's not at all easy, especially with not a lot of background into the industry. So I would say that it is quite tough, but we also had like a lot of opportunity, like colleges here focus more on, like engaging with your peers, discussions, and learning from one another, and like hands-on experiences by like, actually taking you to, like, let's say a factory to show you like how an end-to-end of the supply chain works and stuff like that. So getting that kind of exposure, like, coming here, it's very different from what you really learn in India. It's not all about, theoretical learning, which really helps. And I'm someone who learns from, and like, on hands training. I can't really get grasp everything from like a book. It really helps to have, like, someone to like tell you that, okay, this is the activity, this is what you're going to do, and that's how you get around things. So getting that kind of, educational experience from this kind of curriculum here really helps. So I would also say do a lot of research about like the subjects you want to take up, because the coursework is hard, and you don't want to be in a position where, drop some of the courses like in mid semester, because you can, it's not that you can't, but you will just overload yourself much later in the semesters where you do have to actually focus on getting a job. So, for me, I focused more on subjects like, sourcing, negotiations, deal making, sustainability, because that's what aligned with what I wanted to do. That also kind of helped with a lot of the interviews that I gave, because that was a job role that I was looking into. So there are a lot of mandatory courses, like let's say supply chain management, and a lot of others like, logistics and stuff like that. But that is something that's very supply chain core related, which you have to do anyway, which helps a lot. But the real deal is honestly in like these what do you say, electives that you take up, because that's what kind of tailors the entire program towards what you want to do. So it really like all of these projects that you work on really show what you have studied and where you have applied it, especially in these interviews, because they really look for, initiative, proactiveness, and everything. So talking about all of these and talking about how you bring expertise into that role for the company really helps. So I would say that's how the curriculum definitely is. Um, if I had to talk about professors, they're really great. They're all very, very experienced. So no doubt about, getting one of the best education over here. But I would say do a lot of research beforehand. Look at how the grading system works. Look at the workload and how you want to deal with it, because at the end of the day it's all on you and how you want to manage your entire um, coursework. Yeah.
That's actually quite interesting, the whole taking it to a supply chain and showing that around to you. That's very interesting. Something I would like to understand from your whole conversation is that you did a lot of your research before going into this college. What's something that surprised you here?
So, what surprised me was definitely the way everything is taught here, and the way things are structured here. It's, like I said, very, very different from what, for like 23 years of my life, out of which 16 years I've studied. Back in India, it's so different from that, and like compared to just the 1.5 year that I did here. Like everything is very experiential, like based, like learning. For me, in my like this supply chain management masters, we even had the opportunity to like travel abroad. Like so we went to Vietnam in my first semester, just like for an entire week. And in that entire week, we got to learn from, like, because Vietnam right now is like the growing hub for supply chain. It, of course, overtook like Singapore, China, especially after COVID. So it's really great to see how, these industry leaders like talking about how the supply chain works, how their company is growing, or how they make things work in the real world. Listening to these, talks and going to like these manufacturing sites, factory visits, and everything really help like understand um, how everything in this industry works. Of course, not all of it, but most of it, because a lot of it does depend on like, manufacturing industries or something. So it really does help getting this on hands learning. So it was very surprising to see how everything was structured, how this entire experience was. Um, I would definitely say that getting into these colleges is not easy, but it's definitely worth, all of the experiences that you learn, like you get from this. It's more worth it than what you honestly do back at home because here it's very different. The whole experience for me was a shocker. It did take a lot of time adjusting to it. Because it's not the same. It's not just reading your book and like writing an exam. It's really
Mm,
applying what you studied or what you're taught. The pace with which they're teaching you is so much more advanced. So I would also say having some kind of experience or background in supply chain really, really helps. For me, I did not have that much, but it did help because I did do a couple of internships before. So some kind of knowledge and like, the courses that I did really did help show my intent on wanting to go to the college. But I would really say like to just like, handle the coursework and all of the workload well, do your research around it, like on like how you want to divide it, how you want to split it, and everything. But yeah,
yeah, I think students really need to start building their timetables for this college.
I think there's a
Something I would
timetable
also
required
like to
more.
understand.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I cut you. Please go ahead.
No, I said that I think there's a timetable required more here than back at home because I feel you would have more of a routine there than here. You really have to do everything yourself, so you have to work around
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
I've actually heard that a lot. That curriculum is really driven by you and yourself. It's more about what you take
Exactly.
from your.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all on you.
Yeah.
Like there's nobody's gonna hold your hand and say, "Oh, take this," or like, "Oh, this is what you're gonna learn." No, this is actually your chance to choose what you want to study. Because I know a lot of people who do engineering and maybe
Hmm.
that's not what they want to do, including me. But you only figure that out way into your degree and you're like, you don't want to drop it, you don't want to like pursue it later, but so yeah, it's like I feel like this is also your chance to pick what you really want to study and do and take up later. So, yeah.
Something I would really like to hear from you is how this translated into how your curriculum translated into your current job at Tesla.
So for me, like I said, I focused a lot on projects and subjects like related to sourcing, negotiation, sustainability, all of which translated into roles as a buyer. So I was looking more into like procurement roles, sourcing roles, and the internship that I got at first, the role was for a purchasing,
And
it was into the Department of Purchasing. So as a supply chain manager, every entire thing that my job role does, like, like negotiations, analysis, dealing with your suppliers, the supplier management, and all of those things. Um, Literally came into my sourcing classes and my negotiation classes other than just my supply chain or like anything else. So thinking about like all of that, like being able to show the projects that I worked on and the courses that I took up, being able to answer in my interview with that expertise really, really helped. And that is also, like I said, because I tailored the program in a way that I wanted. So being able to pick what you want and show it in your interviews, doing like really hard work because you know what you studied and this is what you want. So being able to show that in your interview is like very important. Yeah.
something I also know about you is that you did an internship at Tesla, right? Did you always have in mind that after this curriculum you're going to look at Tesla? You have these particular jobs in mind. What was your job search like?
The job search was never easy. It honestly started from the day that you land. The first week of my master's was like we had this entire week of orientation, during which 2 days was a summit. And that's even when you get to meet a lot of these industry leaders and you give them your resume, take their contact cards, like, talk to them and say, hey, yeah, I'm interested. And like, I've done this before. I want to do this now. So it literally starts from the day you land there. There's no doubt about that. But it does take a lot of consistent applying, refining your resume, getting feedback from people around you, you know. it's not like a one-time thing. Like you just make a resume and you're like giving it out. It doesn't work like that. And I think everybody knows that because you just have to keep changing it. You have to keep changing it according to the role that you're applying to, or according to like the feedback that you get, or what works, what doesn't work. Some people, for example, some people put like a section of their resume that's on top, but for someone else that's on the bottom. It all really depends on how you do it. But I would say like keeping your resume relevant to the job you're applying really, really matters, because a lot of people do look at the experience that you come with, but it also matters because like I said, I did a job in technology assurance, but that doesn't really relate to supply chain in any sort of way. But I would like to keep that because it does show that I did work in corporate before. I do know how, the outside world does work. I probably learned a lot of soft skills over there. So somewhere here and there you get plus points, but otherwise, I feel like keeping it relevant is really, really important, refining it, continuously applying. Rejections are all a part of it. Got plenty rejections every day. Like you wake up in the morning, you check your phone, the first thing you get is like 10 rejections to all the ones you've applied. So it's not at all easy, but I landed this internship. I think I did. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure. Like you apply to so many jobs. At what point exactly I had applied to Tesla, but they did reach back out saying they were interested, and that's kind of how I went about it. I did get around two interviews for two different teams, but they only
Mhm.
went ahead with one, the one that I did start my internship with. I would really say that getting your foot in the door is very, very, very important. There's it's very easy to get like it's very easy once you get your foot into the door. Of course, a lot of things like, US job market is so volatile, you can never tell. But I have seen like with sometimes some things you can't really control is like the job market or like the timing. But I would say how you approach it really does matter. So just be consistent, I guess, and it will really work out in the end. And like I said, put in all your effort from the beginning, because everyone's I know that they say job market is like hard, tough, and everything, but I would still say there are jobs out there. It's not that there aren't. So I would just say be consistent and it will work out for the best.
I
And
really
like
hope
I know you said, why did you like was Tesla on my list? To be very honest, no. I was applying to like every company that was really good at supply chain. But before that, I even interviewed for a company called Niagara Bottling, which is based off in LA. But
it.
of course, I gave my interview and everything. It didn't go super well, I guess. But yeah, Tesla was, to be honest, the second interview that I got, and it just worked out.
You nailed it.
Had to nail it. 2 days of, just grinding and like studying everything that I possibly can. Yeah, I was like, oh no, I have to get this. Yeah.
I mean, speaking about nailing this interview, what do you think worked specifically for you? What is that one thing that you know you did right?
To be very honest, I did prepare a lot, a lot.
Hmm.
I only got it like a week, like a week's time, out of which I was also traveling, so I did not get a lot of time to prepare. But I would say when I did sit like to prepare, I prepared everything that I could related to the job role and the company and what I want to do, because very, very luckily I did. It was exactly the job role that I wanted. The entire job description just showed that, those are the things that I want to do in supply chain. That is the core supply chain that I want to get into. So looking at that, I did prepare. I of course used like a lot of AI tools to like, understand like how I could go about my interview, what kind of questions can be asked, or how I can prepare for like a certain topic, what all of those things. But of course, I also focus heavily on what I studied relating to these kind of questions, how I have applied it either before or during college on my projects. So, really talking, especially in your introduction, really talking about a lot of these things really helps, because that gives them time to either ask you questions about what you have done based out of what you've done, or if they already have prepared questions, you're already prepared for that as well, because you have like prepped yourself for those kind of questions apart from just talking about your curriculum or answer questions based off of that. So yeah, I think it was like a full circle, like just to go about everything. It's really not, like I said, not easy to get into these companies because I have friends who have given multiple rounds, and in the end, it's honestly sometimes not even their fault. Sometimes there are companies that just change their mind. So getting the foot in the door is like super important, and just how you approach the entire situation. Yeah.
It's not seeming impossible.
Oh yeah, of course not. Nothing, I think nothing is impossible. Like I said, some things are just not in your hand, like the timing or how the market is currently working. But yeah, I think consistency plays a big role. Like constant applying, constant feedback, constant like refining your resume, especially networking also. Networking really, really, really helps. Um, the alumni network at USC is pretty great, because we also had like an online cohort that we're already doing jobs apart from just the course. So reaching out to such people for like openings in their company or networking, because if you know them well, they're probably willing to like, refer you to someone they know in another company. So networking really does help here, because I do know a lot of people who did get jobs by just like, just sometimes you just have to ask. It's You don't really have to go a super long way. So it really does help to network, talk to people, reach out to people. If like for me, for my fall co-op, actually, even before converting or having a confirmation on extending my internship, I did interview for two other companies in that time frame. And one
Mhm.
person, it was a role for a logistics analyst. Logistics isn't completely my forte, but again, sometimes you're like, it's still supply chain, so it's fine to like, go ahead, study that and like learn, get some experience in that. So I still remember the person who interviewed me. He said, towards the end of the interview, he said, I hope you know this is for a logistics position. I was like, yeah, of course. And then he's like, you're really great as a supply chain manager, which kind of said, that you're great as an SEM, but
Yeah.
I don't think you have what it takes to do logistics, you know, um, which kind of makes sense because, but later on, I did understand how networking really goes and the way you approach people, the way you talk to them. He reached out to me on LinkedIn like maybe 2, 3 weeks later, and he sent me a job posting for an SCM intern for fall co-op, and told me to like reach out to somebody and said, tell them you know me, and you've interviewed with me before. So I didn't have to do that, but because I got my extension at Tesla, but just going that far, like, even just, I didn't even have to probably take up that interview because I could have just been like, oh, I might just convert this. I don't want to take this. But still going there, I know for a fact that any day that I message him, he's still gonna have that image of me that I did well in his interview, but just not for that particular role. But he would always be willing to like help me out. I know that. So I think networking goes a long, long, long way in any form. Yep.
And something I would really like to understand here is what was the role of your college in all of this? What does the curriculum look like? I mean, curriculum as in what are the extracurricular activities or something that your university does to build these connections and bonds for you in the industry?
So So we do have like, a bunch of people who do help with like these events, like
Mhm.
hosting like networking events for our university or for our program that does bring in like industry leaders. Like sometimes it's just 2 to 3 companies, but it still helps to,
Mhm.
like go meet these people, understand what their company does. And sometimes they're always most times they're willing to like look at full-time positions, so internships are hard sometimes. I'm going to be very honest with that. We Landing an internship as such wasn't super easy, like through this university networking, like with companies or people they bring to us. But it does help because some companies you don't even know exist. So it always helps to like go network with these people. They have like they kind of have like high tea kind of stuff where like they just arrange like a few snacks where you can go talk, you can share your resume, you can talk to about what you do. And yeah, it's the college does set up these things, and apart from that, we do have like sessions where you can attend, like training sessions as to how you can approach somebody, or how you can we have like resume tailoring sessions where you can go like just sit down, like you can sign up for these. And I personally did attend like few of these sessions, not all, because sometimes it does take up quite a bit of your time. And you might think that, okay, I kind of feel like I have something else to do, which is fair. But I do think that attending at least a few of these sessions does help because they know how these things work even before we do, at least before I would have gotten into the industry. So I think it does help to attend these sessions. It's not that they don't host these, they do. It's up to you on how you want to do it. If you want to, like, go to someone more experienced in your class who has like a really good resume, like, yeah, sure, go to them or attend these sessions that the university is, providing to you. But overall, university is great. Everything they do for their students, like, in terms of like landing you a job or anything, it does help because companies also look at really good schools. It's not that they don't look at like other schools, but your school, where you come from, what kind of masters you have done, really does matter. So I guess it all plays an overall role. Yeah, USC did a good job, I would say, but it all depends on how you take it, like towards the end, to be very honest. And this country, it's like you're really on your own. You can take
Mhm.
help, but that's as far as it goes. You really have to do it your way, the right way, what works for you.
Let's circle back to fun times. How was your life at USC? What were your highlights? What were your lows? What surprised you the most?
Um, my fun times were all outside of college grounds. We did have so there we have this thing called tailgates. I didn't even know they were a thing until I came here, which is very fun because it's all about the football game. So the day of the game, you have the entire university's out, undergrads, graduates, everybody's like, cheering for their team, the university, and like having fun and all of that. So that's pretty great. That's like a fun thing that I'm pretty sure everyone should experience if you go to USC. Other than that, just for extracurricular, to be very honest, if you're a very like sportsy person, you can definitely like get into like maybe some of these sports that they do have. I am not super into sports as such, so never really on my plate. But I would say that there is a lot of opportunity if you audition for the team or all of that. So sports at university is like a big thing. I think all of these, US universities, but yeah, definitely maybe look into sports if you're into that. And I would say that on campus, I there are just like these very like small things that you just have to like look at like the app and like see what's going on. Like if you want to attend it, we do have a lot of job fairs, career fairs. um, this one time that I went to, so I was missing my dogs at home. So they had like this pets thing. So a bunch of people got their pets, and a lot of people like went to like see these pets and stuff. Like it's like a stress buster something. I don't remember what exactly it was, but you do have like these small things that you can always go and attend. Like just spend time, do your thing, and you can always sit on campus. You can just probably go lie down on a lawn and like do your own thing. You can use libraries, go study there. People are very respectful of like, your environment. So it's always very peaceful to go to a library and study, sit and apply to jobs, anything. And that's also kind of how you do meet people, like just being around, staying on campus and like, yeah. Um, USC overall being in California, everything was like perfect, like perfect moment for me. So in whatever way, yeah, it was good.
I loved hearing about all of these extracurricular activities because I personally love all of them. I would be in sports, I would be at the dog fair, I would be at all of these places. So let me ask you, if somebody today came to you and asked you, I want to get into USC Marshall, give me some tips. What are some one, two major things that come to your mind, keeping in mind that I'm an Indian applicant? Some things that you would specifically tell me.
Yeah. So to be very honest, like I said, USC is not super easy to get into. I would definitely say apply to a bunch of other colleges and keep like a solid backup ready. It's not at all easy to get into. Even for me, I applied towards the later deadlines, which was a mistake on my end because I had to wait a bunch like like a few months even before I got to hear their decision, which was towards the end, which was literally in June. And that's the time where people are literally getting their visas. So I would say apply super early because the competition is less. And apart from that, do apply to other schools that you know you would like going to. Um, Apart from that, definitely focus on your resume, tailor it to the program, show them what you're bringing, like to this program, like you're worth making the program what it is. Show them your interests, work on your SOPs and LORs. I would say your SOP really has to be your story. It should be like you're telling it, like what expertise you bring, what you want to do with this education or like with this master's, what you plan to achieve afterwards. So everything matters. So focus on your story. Other than that, your LORs, I would say get it done by someone who really knows you, who's like worked with you either on projects at work or in college. So your professors, your managers, people who are really there to talk about your strengths because it matters. Apart from that, I would say don't use too many AI tools. I know it does help, but sometimes it does help to make things maybe sound a little better. So that's okay to like refine it a tad bit, but completely using AI will just not make it sound like it's you. So it should be like you're the one talking. And with USC, especially for this program, we have like a video presentation which you have to prepare for about I don't remember for how many minutes, but it was a bunch of minutes. So you have to really know what you're talking, what you're saying, and why you want to get into the school, or what you want to do with this education, what kind of subjects you want to look into, whose classes you're interested in, like whose classes you're, and I feel like you should already talk like you got in, because you should be like, oh, I'm looking forward to like go to this professor's class or like attend this trip because it has on hands experience, like getting to meet industry leaders. This course, is going to bring me this kind of experience that I can take in later to my job and stuff like that. Talk about all these things in your presentation. Be clear about what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and what you can like, give to the program as a student. So all of this really matters. I think off late I've heard that there are interviews now. I'm not sure. But yeah, I would say that that would actually be your time to really stand out, because a piece of paper is nothing sometimes because everybody is sending out applications. You really need to
That's
be like, you need to like really show that you're different and you're not just like taking it off of AI, for example. So I
Mhm.
would say that, be confident, talk about yourself, talk about all of these things, be clear in what you say. So that would probably really help you stand out. I think that's what did for me. So yeah.
I mean, so being at ScoreLeap, USC Marshall is a very competitive school to get into, right? Being at ScoreLeap, what do you think made your application stand out? What's that one thing that you think was it?
For me, what like to be very honest, like I said, I applied towards the end. I waited for months for an answer. I was even going to like go ahead with a different school right before, which like a day before, my mom was like, you know what, I'm paying the fees for this college. You're going here. I got my answer.
100% scholarship? You got a scholarship at a different college?
Yes, I
If,
did. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was very inclined to you towards USC. Also, like I said, because it's in California. It's also like the hub for like supply chain. Otherwise, like so many manufacturing companies and everything. So I really wanted to go to USC, and that's why I also waited. I pushed myself to wait, even though I got response from all the universities. I waited to get my response from USC. So I would say applying really, much in advance would really help.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
I was just asking about what do you think made your application stand out?
Okay, about my application, like I said, really talk about what you want to do, what you bring to the program, talk about your experience. And even if from someone like me, I didn't have too much experience like in supply chain because I've always been into tech before, but talk about what interests you, talk about the the curriculum itself. That's why do your research. Talk about the subjects that you really want to study. And that's how actually it shows that you've done your research around things, what you want to take up, which professor's class you want to attend, what you think you would gain from the program, what kind of jobs you're looking into, what kind of changes you're planning to make into the supply chain industry much later, looking at, current situation, global trends, or anything. So like always be on top of like your knowledge and stuff, because it really does help your application stand out. Apart from that, if you don't have too much experience, talk about stuff that will still make sense in any industry, right? Like I said, soft skills, like talk about the kind of skills that you bring apart from just like leadership skills, if you've like, led projects at work or at school. And talk about other things like your communication skills, or the fact that you can teach others stuff, or like you can um, anything basically that would help your application stand out. For me, I did literally all of these things because USC literally does demand you to have all of these. And so having it all like well structured enough to like show them you're capable of like doing well at this program really matters. So I would say having everything like well organized would kind of work out. For me, there was no one certain point, like I said, because like that it I feel like it stood out or anything because it took so long for them to like even give me a decision. But I would say this is like the basic way of like going about it, like the most the most cut down way of like putting things, like just be organized, talk about what you want to do and all of those things, and I think you should be fine. And and please apply super 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 early, because it would be much easier to like either take a yes or no rather than just sit and wait for months. Like, and it's not just with this college. I would say a lot of colleges do that towards the end, because competition is super high then, and you're in like with like compared to like a bunch of people who have like 10 years of experience, then what are you going to do? So it is really hard. Nobody should actually go through that kind of tension. So I would say apply much earlier so the competition is low. So even if you have lesser experience, they would still look at you as someone they want to take in.
Again, bringing the timetable aspect into our talk. So build your timetables, audience. Build your timetable.
Yes, definitely build your time.
Talking talking about how you applied really late. What's something you'd like to tell our Indian students specifically about navigating OPTs, visas, job market in the US?
Um, So coming to OPTs, I didn't have that much of an issue, like I said, because I converted my internship to a fall co-op and then a full-time job. So when we look at it that way, it's not that much of an issue because I've always, already been on CPT and then converted to my OPT. But I do have a lot of my peers and my friends who are still, looking for jobs. So I do know that it is very challenging and it's not easy at all. I would say from day one, be prepared with like what you would do if you were to not get a job. And, because it's a very short time frame between like, graduating and like you have to find a job before like your time ends or anything. I know there are a lot of ways that you can probably extend your time, but I would say have like a plan much before the last minute or before you graduate. So, get yourself familiar with how the college works, how they would be willing to help you, like, if in case you don't have a job, like do research projects with professors, keep yourself relevant in the industry, because it really does help show that even though you've graduated, you don't currently have a job, it shows that you're still working in school, you're still putting in that effort, and constantly keep applying. I would say, even I know that most of us do want to like get that H-1B sponsorship from companies and all of that, but I would say even if you do get a job that does not sponsor, but they're willing to take you, take it, because in the end at least you got your foot into the door. You can still look for other opportunities while you're doing that job, because
Hmm.
you can still move companies. It's not that you can't, at least to like to another company that is willing to sponsor for your visa. But I would say otherwise, just keep yourself relevant, keep yourself proactive, do your work around like projects, keep applying, um, just be prepared much well in advance than otherwise. because it would be really tough in the last minute to figure out a lot of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to tell me about your visa application processes and everything? How would you give me like a hack to making it easier for everybody here?
Honestly speaking, uh, my mom helped me so much with this. It was all about like just I can talk more to like the interview process and rather than like the entire application process. I would say the interview was quite easy. They do mostly just ask you stuff about, like which university you're going to, or what have you studied before, or like why this shift in your major, why this school, or like who's funding you, have you taken a loan, and stuff like that. Most of which answers are pretty straightforward, easy. I would say do not lie about anything because they can find out. Everything on that screen is about you. They may pretend to be doing something else if you think they are, but they're literally just looking at your profile. They have a lot of information about you, probably things you don't even know. I don't know, but I would just say do not lie about anything. Be very straightforward, whatever it is. Answer your questions like you've literally prepared for, like, let's say if it's for my program, like the video presentation, everything you prepared for. Same thing here because it's literally like another interview. Just to make sure you're a real person, you're really going to do this not with any ulterior motives. So I would say just be prepared for the interview. It will go really well. There's no doubt about it if you're prepared. It's not going to be that hard. Um, just know your answers to what they ask. Yeah.
That's actually amazing because knowing that the visa application process is not going to be as daunting as I make it in my head, I think is very important for everybody in the audience to
Yeah.
know.
No, for sure. I think I had an entire like front and back 2 pages. Like it was hectic. I would do like mock trials with my parents like every 2 hours. So we had to drive to Chennai. So entire car at some point they were like, stop, it's fine, you're gonna do fine. Just stop. Because it's not easy. You don't know what they're gonna ask you. But in the end, like since I have experienced it now, I would say it's not that bad. You'll do like just fine if you're well prepared. So yeah.
Well, Niharika, thank you so much for this insightful session. We're coming towards the end of our questions, but we're going to take audience questions now. So I'm going to present to you them one by one and we can answer them accordingly.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So our first question is by Wismay. What are the different roles or departments one can look at post supply chain management?
So, there are a lot of ways you can diversify in supply chain. It is so huge. It really depends on your interest. I would say there's logistics, there is just supply chain managers, or there's also something called supplier industrialization engineering. Um, s- uh, these are a few roles that I've seen, or like supply chain program managers, or like supplier industrialization engineering program managers. All of these really relate to supply chain, like at least in at Tesla. I'm literally going to talk about where I work as such. All of these are hardcore supply chain related courses. If there's anything else, you can always look into material planning. You can look at people who do forecasting or data analysis for like material planners. And to be very honest, there are plenty of roles. I would suggest you look into what exactly you want to do. Like for me, I looked into more procurement roles, so I took up subjects related to that. So I would say in supply chain, if you're looking for a particular role, like do subjects related to that. So you would be heavy on that knowledge. And you can always like, filter your job roles and like just apply to those because you would know better as to what you want to do and what kind of job role you want to get. Yeah.
I hope, Wisma, that answers your question. I hope you've taken a lot of insight from this. The next question we have is from Ritik. He wants to be an aspiring supply chain professional, and he's asking that you mentioned learning from peers. How was cross cultural collaboration, and one best and worst lesson from working with a friend?
So I think Learning from your peers really does help. Like I said, there are people who are more experienced from you, so getting different perspectives on like the subject matter or like anything related to supply chain that way helps a lot because I'm someone who doesn't have experience, but someone with a lot more experience might be able to explain something much better to you. So, like I said, be diverse in like who you pick, like to do your projects with and everything. So it really helps see things in different ways and it puts things in perspective. Other than that, one good and bad thing about working with peers. One is, like I said, definitely pick who you work with because not everyone does the work. It doesn't matter where, India, here, it's the same. It's just you need to really know your way. Like, just don't repeat certain things again, I guess. Pick who you do your work with. So, there's always someone to support you, like you would do the job. Um, Good things about working with your peers, like I said, puts things in perspectives. You have support around you all the time, and it's kind of nice to know that you're not the only one, there. There are others just like you who are going through the same thing. So yeah.
The next question we have is, which courses would you suggest to one to do before going to a business school for someone who is from a different background entirely?
So someone who's from a different background entirely, to be very honest, I can't completely answer this question because it really depends on what degree you want to take up. But I would definitely say do your research around what these courses. So sometimes they might be tools that your subjects are heavy on. So like you would want to like study those tools or like try to get your hands on them. So it makes it much easier when you go into school. Try a lot of business schools work on Excel. So like use Excel. So I would say work on your skills there. Um, Try to get your hands around as much as possible, like just even when you just go through courses. I know that these websites, like university websites, don't tell you everything, so you just might want to prepare yourself. Like you can always just put it up on AI and say, hey, like what kind of tools does like this particular like topic use, or like anything in your free time to like just get your hands on something and like get a few ideas or like knowledge on something before you come. It really really helps. It doesn't matter which background, because even for me, a lot of subjects were very Excel heavy, which I only kind of figured after coming. So I had to do my work around it. But I would say beforehand, do all of this research, so it would really help. Yeah, it would make it much easier when you come here.
Well, Niharika, thank you so much for this enriching session. I think we've come to the end of the questions, and I would like you so thank you so much for telling our audience everything they needed to know about supply chain management and UCL you, at
USC.
whole. At whole, I saw this very long. USC at whole. Thank you so much,
Of course.
and yeah, um, I hope you have a great weekend.
You too. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. And for our audience, if you have any more questions, please feel free to drop your questions and queries at info@scoreleap.in. And if you all want us to conduct any more such sessions, please drop it in the chat box and encourage us to do more like this. Sorry, we have a question. Before we end, we'll take one more question. Mm, I think we have a network error. The question is the coursework rigorous?
It is. It is very heavy. It can get intense. So, like I said, anything to make your coursework easier, like go through what courses you're looking at, go through your mandatory courses. Honestly, reach out to people on LinkedIn who've done this coursework before. Try to get as much information as possible that you can and try to work around that. And I would definitely say it would make some things easier. It would at least keep you much prepared than like just going there and like saying, "Oh, I didn't know it was gonna be this hard," or I don't know this. What do I do? So at least always having a little bit in your head would help. Yeah.
That's amazing. One last thing we would request you to do is please, if you're comfortable, share your LinkedIn profile so that our students can connect with you, ask their questions directly with you. Since you're an ScoreLeap alumni, it'll be great if you could, talk to our
Yeah,
students
of
directly.
course. Of course. Do I just share it?
Yeah, I can also read it out once. So you put it in the
Oh
chat.
yeah, of course. Okay. I shared it. It would be linkedin.com/in/Nihaarika Badri.
Yeah. Paisoni will be sharing with whoever is interested. Thank you so much, our audience. I hope you have had a great session and I hope you have learned so much more about the courses you want and the direction you want to be taking. Thank you, Niharika, for being here with us. I hope you have had a
Thank you,
great time with
Akshay,
us.
for this
Have a
wonderful
great
session.
weekend.
You too. Just as we